was gonna do this intro from the water, but on second thought, yeah, no. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Horror Movie Syllabus. My name is Professor Victor, and I'll be your host as we go through all of the essential, noteworthy, interesting, and notorious modern horror films. If you're new, I recommend you check out our introduction video. That's linked in the description below. That'll give you a pretty good idea of what we're about here at the Horror Movie Syllabus. But in short, what we're going to do is take a look at a specific subgenre of horror and then look at 3 representative examples of that subgenre. Today, we're talking about sharks. And some of you might be thinking, hey, didn't we just talk about animal horror movies? Aren't sharks animals? Yes and yes. You are correct on both counts. So why do we have a separate video just for sharks? The answer is very clear. I love shark movies. I love them. I love sharks and I love shark movies. So it's my syllabus. I decided to separate sharks out so I can make more selections for shark movies. And if you watch the animal video, you know that I mentioned the same thing about alligator movies as well, because there's so many of them that there could warrant having their own subgenre. I opted not to do that for the alligators, but I did do it for sharks because not only do I love shark movies, there are a lot of them. It really does warrant its own subgenre. There are a tremendous amount of shark movies. There are probably more shark movies than there are animal horror movies about other animals combined. So it definitely seems to me like it warrants its own subgenre because it's a thing. I mean, and I'm not alone in this. There is a lot of affection for shark movies. That you just type in shark horror films to YouTube and see how many results you get, how many other people making videos about this. There are lots of sharks movies and lots of love for them. So I feel a little justified in it, but yeah, I'll be honest, mostly because I just love shark movies. And here's the thing: like, there's a lot of shark movies, and the quality is all over the map. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But for the most part, what we're talking about today is the cream of the crop, the top of the surface, the best of the shark horror movies, because while a lot of people love them, and like we talked about the animal subgenre, there's a lot of love for like schlocky, campy type horror movies. There's a lot of quality shark movies out there, movies that play it straight. Really, there's some fun ones. Again, we'll talk about this, but there's a lot of shark horror movies that are quality and really meant to be maybe not so much highbrow exactly, but actual scary movies, actually meant to scare you and actually meant to give you that feeling of tension and dread. And that's why we've chosen today to categorize the shark movies on levels of quality. So undergraduate, graduate, and postgraduate, with postgraduate being the highest quality shark movie in the horror genre. So with that, let's dive in to these horror movies. Sorry. Our first shark movie that we're talking about today, the undergraduate selection, is Deep Blue Sea. And right off the bat, I'm undercutting what I just said about quality. Not because Deep Blue Sea isn't a quality movie, but because it's not trying to present itself as something serious or a scary horror film. It wants you to have a good time. It wants you to have a good fun ride, and on that, it absolutely delivers. So, if you're not familiar with Deep Blue Sea, it came out in 1999, and it's the story of a group of scientists who are experimenting on trying to find a cure for, I think it's Alzheimer's disease. And so what they've done, they're experimenting on shark brains, and so they've created genetically engineered smart sharks, and it is awesome. It is so much fun. That premise alone should be exciting to you. Like, what if a shark wasn't just an instinctual hunter, but also smart? You should be into that. I mean, like, the only thing better would be lasers on its heads, right? Like, I mean, um, so if you like sharks, like I do, this one's gonna be a good time for you because you've already enhanced the shark, which is already a natural killing machine, and you've made it into a smart natural killing machine. And that's a lot of fun. Part of what makes this movie really good is it's got a really good cast. It's got Thomas Jane, it's got Samuel L. Jackson, it's got LL Cool J, it's got Michael Rappaport, Saffron Burrows, who in the 90s was looking like she was going to be a big thing for a minute, and then the minute passed. But she's good in this movie. The cast is really strong, and they're a lot of fun. And the script, while dumb, is having a fun time. And if you let yourself, you're gonna have a fun time too. In fact, forget about letting yourself. You will just have a good time. It'll win you over. I really genuinely believe that, because I went and saw this movie in theaters opening weekend with a bunch of friends back when that was a thing. And I was kind of expecting slash hoping for something a little more on the serious side, a little bit more of a serious shark attack type movie, because I like those. I like them a lot. And I wasn't exactly prepared for what I was going to get here, and it did not matter. Within a short amount of time, this movie had me won over. It charmed me. It's so much fun. And part of what's so much fun about this movie is that it knows that all of the horror tropes. It knows that that black people die first, and that your main characters will make it till the end, and things like that. And it decides to give a big old middle finger to that kind of stuff. And that is awesome. It caught me off guard, and I don't want to spoil the movie for you. I don't want to spoil any of the fun moments if you haven't seen it before. I will just say that it has one of the most shocking and surprising deaths maybe ever in a horror movie. I didn't see it coming. The entire audience didn't see it coming. And if we weren't already in on the movie at that point, anybody who wasn't in at that point was in after that point, because it happens fairly early in the movie. Again, I'm dangerously close to spoiling things, so let me stop there and just say this movie will surprise you. This movie will make you laugh. It'll freak you out. It's got fun gore. The effects, by today's standards, 20 some odd years later, it's fine. It's fine. It's not horrible. You understand why. You understand it's from 1999. But the movie's a blast. It's such a good time. And I pretty much can guarantee you're going to have a good time with it. The movie has a couple of direct-to-video sequels that are, as usual, diminishing returns. It doesn't have anywhere near the fun of the original, and I think it's partly because maybe the cat's out of the bag a little bit on it. Maybe it's because you don't have the same quality of cast in the sequels, or maybe it's just, I don't know, just not as good. But for whatever reason, the sequels are not a waste of time, but they're not as good as the original. The original, in my opinion, is a must-see and a must-listen. Do yourself a favor, stay through the credits. Not for any end credits scene so much as for the LL Cool J song played at the end of the movie that I think is called something like "My Hat is a Shark Fin." Believe me, you'll thank me that you stayed to listen to it. But check the movie out if you haven't seen it. It's definitely worth your time. It's a good time. Great movie to watch with friends. So now that things are, at this time of this recording, pandemic-wise, starting to get a little bit better, and if you're having people over, Deep Blue Sea might be a good one to go ahead and check out. So do so, and then let me know how your party went. The second movie we're talking about today, our graduate level movie, is The Shallows. Now, The Shallows came out in 2014, and it stars Blake Lively. And the movie is, well, it's Blake Lively versus a shark. And if you're me, that gets your money immediately. So if you haven't seen The Shallows and you don't know what it's about, more specifically, Blake Lively plays a woman who goes surfing on a secluded beach in Mexico because she's dealing with some family issues and stuff like that blessedly don't bog the movie down all that much. But she's off to a beach basically by herself, and then a shark comes in and attacks. And of course, we'll stop there before we give out too many details about the movie and spoil it. Uh, but it's absolutely fantastic, and the movie does a really good job of setting up the premise in a way that you'll buy into. And I think that's important because we've seen a number of these kind of movies and you're asked to forgive a lot. And in this movie, I feel like you can forgive it pretty easily. I think they've done a good job of giving you just enough setup and enough backstory that you buy into this premise. And it's important because you don't want to be distracted from those things. You want to be able to focus on the tension of the situation. And that's the key word, tension. This movie's got a lot of it. It really is the story of a woman trapped on a rock in the ocean, surrounded by a shark that wants to eat her, and she's injured and she can't get help. And it works extremely well. It's very, very effective. One of the reasons why it's so effective is my girl Blake Lively. I am a big Blake Lively fan. As some of you know, I have the taste of a teenage girl when it comes to TV shows sometimes. And I loved Gossip Girl. And Serena Vanderwoodson was the main character in Gossip Girl, one of them played by Blake Lively. It's, as far as I know, where she got her start. It's where I first saw her from. And yeah, it's like a kind of a cheesy teen TV show, but she's a good actress, and she showed in that show, and then subsequently in everything I've seen her in, she's been very, very good. Whether it's the Oliver Stone movie Savages, which not the greatest movies in the world, but she's good in it. The Town, she was excellent in The Town. She does really good work. And the reason why I'm kind of making a big deal out of this is because A, she does exceptional work here, and B, because I don't think Blake Lively gets credit for being a good actress. And I think it's because she's beautiful. She's a very attractive woman, and The Shallows knows this. The director of The Shallows clearly knows that either he thinks Blake Lively's hot, and or he knows the audience thinks Blake Lively's hot, because the camera loves Blake Lively in this movie, and that is my polite way of saying that they really just want to show off Blake Lively's body in this movie a lot. They've got her in her bikini, and the camera is just all over her curves. And that's a selling point for the movie. And if it's a selling point for you, great. I don't think there's anything wrong with that in the slightest. I'm not judging that at all. Sex sells. Sex in horror is a trope. You've got a woman like Blake Lively, a beautiful actress. It's an asset, no pun intended, to use her sex appeal in the movie. That is not a judgment at all. All I'm saying is that Blake Lively is also a really, really good actress, and she proves it in this movie. And if you've seen the trailer of the movie, you might just think, oh, it's like sexy Blake Lively, and it's an excuse to show her in her bikini. No, she's exceptional in the movie, and as the movie goes on, she's less and less hot as the circumstances take their toll on her. It's fantastic performance. And if you ever doubted Blake Lively as an actor, see this movie because she carries it. As most animal movies we talked about in the last video are hinging on, it's basically usually one or two people acting off of an animal, usually a CGI animal at that. And The Shallows is no exception to that. It's basically Blake Lively the entire time. Now you're gonna have to just except that Blake Lively's character talks to herself a lot, because otherwise you'd have like a silent film. So you just have to do that. And yeah, sometimes she's kind of telling you things that are plot driven. It's a little bit, exposition wise, but her performance is exceptional, and it's what anchors the movie. It's what keeps you drawn in, and it's what allows the tension to grab you. A lesser actor would not have been able to pull this off. And it's a testament to her performance that this movie is nail-bitingly good. It really does lock you in. It really puts you in her shoes, and in that situation you start to ask yourself, well, could I swim fast enough to make it to the shore? What would I do? How would I deal with this? It's always best when those movies, when the animal movies, shark movies, put you in the protagonist's shoes and let you think of ways that you could beat it, and then show you that you're wrong. That's to me the most effective way of doing these movies, and The Shallows nails it. If I have a criticism of The Shallows, it's that some of the shark CGI, especially towards the end, is a little wonky, and it was even at the time. So it's not going to age very well. It's not the greatest CGI, but it's not so bad that it's going to totally pull you out of the movie. I think you can let it slide. I think you can forgive it. I don't think it's going to ruin your experience. I think overall, The Shallows is an intense ride. It's It's fun because shark movies are fun, but it's not a fun movie like Deep Blue Sea is. It's not campy. It's not any of that stuff. It's a straight, you know, Jaws inspired, scary shark movie with a protagonist that is battling a shark, and you're concerned for her safety, and you're, you know, able to put yourself in her shoes and empathize with her. It really is extremely effective. I was very pleasantly surprised when I saw this movie. I went in again, Blake Lively versus Shark. You had my money. I went and saw it opening night, and I absolutely loved it. I went with some friends who didn't love it as much as I did, but they don't have their own horror channel, so you know, my opinion trumps theirs, I guess, at least for now. But I love The Shallows. I think it is probably the second best shark movie of all time. So take my opinion for what it is, but definitely check out The Shallows if you haven't seen it. And the last shark movie that we're talking about today, our postgraduate level selection and the highest quality shark movie of all time, is, of course, Shark Exorcist. Of course, I'm just kidding. It's Jaws. And obviously, it's Jaws. I mean, it's the T-shirt. It's the prototype shark movie. It is a legendary film. It is not only the greatest shark movie of all time, indisputably, it is also arguably one of the best horror movies of all time, and the progenitor of the modern movie blockbuster. But we'll get into that. If for some reason you don't know, Jaws is a 1975 film directed by Steven Spielberg, and it is about a shark that is terrorizing a popular resort area called Amity Island. And the mayor doesn't want to close down the beach because it'll hurt the tourism industry, and the chief of police, along with a, a shark researcher and a fisherman, go out to hunt the shark. And of course, we'll leave it at that. If again, for some reason you haven't seen Jaws, you should see it. Um, the movie is legendary. It is a bona fide classic. You've heard me use the phrase. Those are the movies that are must see. You absolutely have to see Jaws if you haven't. And here's the thing: not just because it's a bona fide classic, not just because you know it's one of those things that your horror education is incomplete without it, but because it's awesome. It's a great movie that totally holds up, even though it's as old as me. It's 45 years old at the 40, going on 46 years old now. It is an incredibly well-made movie by a young director. Steven Spielberg at the time has made, I think he's made Duel at this point. I'd have to look at this again. But Jaws is one of his most early features, and definitely one of his earliest big budget feature. And he absolutely, positively knocks it out of the park. Much has been said about the making of Jaws and how the shark didn't work, and so that's why Steven Spielberg doesn't show the shark very much, and it lends this sense of dread by like letting your imagination like work for you and make it seem scary instead of just showing the shark a lot. And you know, all these stories and everything about the movie, the making of it, are great. There's a lot of stuff out there on YouTube that merits watching, books that merit reading. Behind the scenes features that merit watching. Definitely dive into all of the supplemental material and stuff about Jaws because it's fascinating stuff. I just really kind of want to just talk about why Jaws is so important to the syllabus and to me. Um, that thing about the shark not working, and Steven Spielberg using that to create kind of a mystery around the shark and like let your imagination do the work for you is something that the best horror films manage to do. And it makes for an incredible sense of dread. And so there is he's got some responsibility for that kind of motif being perpetuated in other subgenres of the horror. And also, it's worth noting that so many of the shark movies that come after the fact don't do this. They show more of the shark. It's like they don't really learn that part of the lesson from Jaws. It's kind of weird. I don't know why that is, but there it is. The other thing about Jaws, as I mentioned earlier, is it starts the summer blockbuster, the popcorn film. It's the first movie that really comes out in the summer and becomes like popcorn fare. People going to see the movie in the summer. It becomes a summer event movie that, every summer now you expect there to be these big tentpole actiony event movies. That starts with Jaws. I mean, yes, it gets solidified by Star Wars a couple of years later, but it starts with Jaws. And Steven Spielberg is owed the credit for that. And Jaws deserves that legendary status in part because it changed the way we watch movies. It changed the way movies are marketed. It changed a lot about cinema. So that's important to note there. It started this entire subgenre we're talking about today. The shark subgenre starts with Jaws. As I mentioned in the animals video, there are a tremendous amount of Jaws knockoffs that come out in the years after Jaws comes out, and to this day, you're seeing Jaws knockoffs. I mean, I could just mention this Shallows. It's not exactly a Jaws knockoff, but it so owes a huge debt to Jaws, as pretty much every shark movie does. So it needs to have some respect on its name for that reason too. It really is the spark that creates this entire subgenre that I love, the shark subgenre. So it needs to be recognized for that reason too. But all of this pedigree aside, all of this important, noteworthy milestone stuff that we're talking about aside, it's really, really good. The movie should grab you, and I know it came out in 1975, so the pacing's a little bit different than the quick cut edits you might be used to in modern films. There's no CGI and stuff in here, and yeah, sometimes when you see the shark, it's going to look like a robot because it is a robot, but it's incredible. It's incredible because you've got a master filmmaker behind the camera doing some masterful work in ways that you won't even notice. Again, go watch some of the documentaries and stuff, other YouTube videos about Jaws, because they'll point out things to you about Spielberg's camera work and lighting and music and things like that help explain to you why this movie will grab you. And it's really, really fascinating stuff. But all you need to know is it's going to grab you because you got a master filmmaker and a master composer in John Williams working together to make sure that this movie has the desired effect on you. You've got incredible acting, absolutely incredible acting in this movie from Roy Scheider and Robert Shaw and Richard Dreyfuss. It's absolutely essential. Like I said before, having good actors facing off against the animal threat is the key to making an exceptional animal horror movie or shark horror movie. You get some of the best acting you'll ever see in a shark horror movie in this movie. It's part of the reason why this movie is so good. There are so many famous lines from this movie. You've probably heard them or seen them on memes. There's so many things about this movie that are classic. And I could go on and on and on, but again, there's other sources that can delve into Jaws in far more detail than I can, and I implore you to go and seek all them out. But before you do, see the movie if you haven't, because it's absolutely essential, and you will not regret it. You will not dislike it. I do believe it holds up. I mean, I saw it when it came out, and we talked about in the animals video, movies that scared me as a kid, but Jaws absolutely terrified me as a kid. I, to this day, am not a big fan of the ocean, and it's not just because of Jaws, but that is my formative years. Jaws scared the hell out of me, and it had an impact that probably resonates to this day. So the movie's powerful. The movie is exceptional. The movie is great on every level. It's basically flawless. I mean, like I said, you can nitpick the technology of the shark, but again, 1975. What are you gonna do? You'll give it that mulligan, and you won't care because it's so good. There are several sequels to the movie. There's 3 sequels to the movie, and they gradually get worse and worse and worse. But they're all worth your time, especially if you realize that the sequels aren't nearly as serious and quality as the original and just have a good time with them. They become a little more campy fun, whereas the original is legitimately good. The sequels are campy fun. They're definitely worth your time. They're definitely a blast, and they are narratively connected, even though some of the continuity maybe is a little bit questionable. But the movies are a blast. I do like them all. Again, they kind of get worse as they go on, but check them out too. But if you see only one, see of course the original. See 1975's Jaws. I promise you that you will not regret it if you haven't seen it. And let's be honest, most of you, if not all of you watching, have already seen it. And I'm gathering, I'd be surprised if any of you dislike it. Maybe some of you think it's overrated, though. And if you do, let us know in the comments. If you think there's a better shark movie than Jaws, whether it be one of the ones we're talking about today or something else that I'm not going to mention, let us know, because I value your opinions. Even though, like, I obviously feel pretty strongly that Jaws is the greatest, and I'm not alone. You'll be fighting an uphill battle on that one, I suppose. But don't be afraid. We're not going to, criticize anybody for having a different opinion in the comments, right, people? But so share with us your opinion, if you do have that minority opinion, because I'd like to hear it. But for myself, Jaws, it's the greatest. So those are our three selections for the best shark horror movies. But we're gonna go ahead and go through a few extra credit movies, and we're only gonna do three, even though I could probably do so many more. There's so many shark movies. But I narrowed myself down to just three to talk about today, that I think are noteworthy enough. The first movie we're gonna mention is 47 Meters Down. And 47 Meters Down came out a couple years ago, and it's about two girls that go diving in a shark cage and then get stuck down there. And it stars Mandy Moore, who I'm a big fan of Mandy Moore, and she's fantastic in the movie. And the movie is one of these double premise movies that I think I mentioned a bit in the animals video, where you have the threat of the animal, in this case the sharks, and you also have another external threat or pressing concern. In this case, they're trapped underwater and their air is running out. So uh, I'm not really scared of sharks exactly. I am, however, pretty scared of drowning. So this movie really, really worked for me, because you've got sharks preventing you from stopping yourself from drowning. That is quite the rock in a hard place. This movie worked really, really well, but it's not trying too much to be too serious. It's not campy or anything like that. But it is fun. It's a fun movie, and the leads are really, really good. Again, got some quality actors in there, in particular Mandy Moore, who I think is great. Uh, uh, Side note: if you're looking for another Shallows type bikini fest like with Blake Lively and 47 Meters Down, you're not getting that here really. And Mandy Moore is a little bit more chaste than that. So if that's your bag, you're not getting that here, and I don't think you'll care. I think that you'll find the movie to be enjoyable enough, tense enough, quality enough to have a good time with it. It was popular enough to make a sequel. I think it was a straight to video sequel. I don't think it got a video. I don't think it got a theatrical release. I saw it on video at least. Called 47 Meters Down, Uncaged. It diminishing returns. It's not a bad time. I enjoyed it, because I'm an easy lay for a shark movie, frankly. But it's nowhere near as good as the first one. So focus on the first one. If you really like the first one, maybe check the second one out. And if you like shark movies a lot, check it out. But the first one's where it's at. I really think that this movie was better than it should have been. Honestly, it's kind of a B movie. It's a schlocky horror movie about sharks, but wound up being more quality than I would have expected. So I definitely endorse 47 Meters Down. The next movie I'm going to mention is called The Reef. And The Reef is, I believe, it's an Australian horror movie, and it's about, if you haven't seen it, a group of people who are get trapped in the ocean, and they're being menaced by a shark. Um, this movie is generally really beloved. People really, really like this movie. I'm not really one of them. I don't dislike it. It's a fine way to spend your time. And again, I like shark movies, so it's not like I'm hating on this at all. I just had too high of expectations when I saw this, because it already, by the time I saw it, had a reputation for being one of the best shark movies. Really, really up there in terms of quality. Really, really good. And it didn't really hit for me on that level. Had I not had any knowledge of the reputation of the movie, had I gone in blind, I probably would have enjoyed it quite a bit more, because it is good. It's well made. Um, I think my issue with the movie is that the characters that we're following aren't very interesting. They're rather dull. Now, there's not a tremendous amount of character development in most shark movies, or most animal movies in general, to be honest with you. And that's usually okay. It's kind of a mulligan. Like I said, in the animal movie, I'm usually rooting for the animal anyways. I'm oftentimes rooting for the shark in these movies. I was definitely rooting for the shark in the reef, because they spend a lot of time on the characters in the reef, and they're not that interesting. There's a lot of personal drama in there that I did not care about, and I think they were trying to make me get invested in the characters so that I would feel something for their peril. And to me, it didn't work. Now, your mileage may vary. Other people probably connected with the characters better than I did. Maybe that's why they are more effusive about their praise in this movie. But I didn't really connect with the characters. I felt like too much time was spent on the characters and their personal relationships and that nonsense. And I just wanted to get to the sharks. And when we got to the sharks, it was good. But the payoff didn't feel worth the time I'd spent with these characters. So I would have liked them to kind of just get to the good stuff earlier. Again, I'm in the minority on this one. From what I understand, this is a pretty well-loved horror movie, well-loved shark movie. So there's every opportunity or every chance that you would check this one out and think that I'm being a little harsher on it than I need to be. So I wanted to point that out. Other people love The Reef. If you've seen The Reef, tell us why you love it. Tell us why you really enjoy the movie, or if you agree with me, yeah, back me up on this. But my guess is if you've seen The Reef, you probably liked it more than I did. And share in the comments why you like it so much, so that people who haven't seen it can be inspired to maybe check it out. I'm mentioning it here, and I do think it's worth checking out. I would just say go in with reduced expectations. And you maybe have a better chance at enjoying it. I wish I had that experience, but it's definitely worth a mention as an extra credit film for sure, and definitely worth your time. And the last extra credit movie I'm going to mention today is Sharknado. I have to. I have to mention Sharknado. I have to. You can't not. It's such a part of the cultural zeitgeist that you have to mention Sharknado if you're talking about shark movies. But here's my confession. I like Sharknado. I thoroughly like Sharknado. I've seen all of them. And they do get progressively dumber too. But they start out dumb. I mean, the first movie is incredibly stupid. Um, for those of you that don't know what Sharknado is, it's a really schlocky B movie that was done, I believe, it was on Sci-Fi Channel, so it's made for TV originally. Um, and it's about sharks that get caught up in a tornado, so they wind up attacking people on land. Uh, it's it's as dumb as it sounds, um, and it knows it. It's supposed to be schlocky fun. It's really taking that whole campy animal horror movie aspect that we talked about last video and amping it up to 11 or 12 even. It really is going all in on schlocky campy stuff. In part by the cast that it's got. It got Ian Ziering from Beverly Hills 90210 and Tara Reid, who might be one of the worst actresses in the world. So it's like actively trying to be stupid, which sometimes doesn't work, especially for me. Sometimes it's like you're trying too hard. It's better to be kind of unintentionally campy or like lightly campy than to like go full bore into it. But for whatever reason, I was able to get into this one. And I think it's because it's sharks, and I just love sharks. And so I'm so much more forgiving to a shark movie than other movies. And I'm admitting that here because Sharknado is not good, and I'm not exactly recommending it so much as I'm just letting you know that it exists and that it needs to be mentioned here. But I want you to know what you're getting yourself into if you do decide to watch it. Mediocre actors. That said, Cassie Serbo is in this movie. She and I've mentioned this before. I mentioned it in this video. My taste in TV shows that are aimed at teenage girls. There was a movie about Olympic gymnasts or aspiring Olympic gymnasts called Make It or Break It, and Cassie Serbo was in that show, and she was really fun in that show. Not a great show, but she was really good in it, and she's in this too, and I really enjoy her. So she was a welcome addition to the movie. And here's the thing: Ian Ziering and Tara Reid fit the tone of this movie. They're not great actors, but they're perfect for the roles that they're doing in this. So this movie's trying to have a good time. So if you're in the mood to have a good time, and or you're drinking a little bit, you might have a good time with Sharknado. It's really a bunch of ridiculously bad CGI gore that's not really convincing in the slightest and is ludicrous, and like dumb decisions and ridiculous scenarios, and lots of sharks doing things that sharks really frankly could never ever do. And it's a blast. Here's the thing: they have like 5 sequels to the movie, maybe 6. I don't even know. And they get progressively stupider but they are all in the same continuity. They follow the same characters, which is ambitious. And the plot just gets dumber and dumber and more and more and more ludicrous. And I have a lot of respect for that. They really, really go all in, put all their chips in on this one. That said, as the movies go on, there are more and more cameos by pop culture people that I, as a Gen Xer, don't know who they are. I've talked in the past about other movies, and you will say things about like I think I talked about this a little bit in Deliverance when we talked about Deliverance. Like some of the actors that pop up in other movies, there's a notoriety to them at the time that maybe later on you don't, if you're not, if you weren't born in the 70s or the 80s, you don't understand the noteworthiness of these kind of characters, these kind of pop culture cameos, if you will. I think we talked about it a little bit in Scary Movie. We talked about that, in the sequel to Scary Movie, that become references to pop culture things that happened, now 20 years ago, and they don't resonate with younger audiences that don't know the reference. Sharknado is kind of the inverse of that. If you're really hip on modern references, and by modern I mean the last 10 years, then some of these cameos might mean something to you and you'll get the joke. I'm not that hip, man. So there were like all these things where it was obvious that there's a cameo and there's a joke in there by the person that's popping up on the screen. And I'd say 70% of the time, I just wasn't getting the joke. I didn't know who it was, and I didn't care enough to try to look it up. Like, is that a Kardashian? I don't know. I don't care. Like reality TV people popping up, stuff like that. D-list people showing up in these movies. So a lot of the fun and comedy of the series kind of depends on those things. So if you're like, my age or whatever, or if you're just kind of pop culture illiterate for really new stuff, like, social media people and reality television people, like me, you might find these references a little hollow, but there's always enough silly shark action to keep things moving. And so I was able to watch all of them and enjoy all of them, but they are dumb. Don't see them. Like if you like quality movies, if you have good taste, don't see the Sharknado movies. Like do yourself that favor. But if you're in for, something really, really stupid, if you want to have a good time with friends, and if you really love sharks and like sharks can do no wrong, give Sharknado a try. It's very popular. As six installments will tell you. It's a very popular franchise for a reason. It's got that buzz, I think, just because it's so dumb. It's unbelievably dumb. It's the kind of thing like, who has the audacity to make these movies? But somebody did. And if you just go in with that kind of positive mindset and not try to be a hater, you might actually have fun with it. But this is not a recommendation, definitely not an endorsement. It's more of a confession. I am confessing that I have watched and enjoyed the Sharknado movies. So do with that what you will. So that's going to bring our exploration of shark movies to an unfortunate early close, because we know we could talk about so many more shark movies, but we have other things we need to get to. So thank you very much for jumping in the waters with me with these shark movies, and that is going to be the last dumb pun that I do for this video, promise. If you have thought of other shark movies that I skipped, I'm certain you have. There are so many more of them. And I'll be honest with you, they're probably not popping up in too many other areas. There is one or two that is going to pop up in other areas of the horror movie syllabus. But go ahead and leave your suggestions in these comments below of movies that I didn't get to in this video, so that we can all know other shark movies that are worth checking out. Again, I love me some shark movies. I would say they're all worth checking out, but they are varying in quality, and a lot of them are pretty schlocky and bad. But give us your thoughts on which ones you think are great. Thanks again very much for hanging out with me as we went through these movies. I really appreciate you guys, viewing, liking, and subscribing. Everything you guys are doing, especially your comments. They're a joy to read, and I really appreciate all of you. So with that, until next week, class dismissed.